RealAgriculture.com presents Under the Microscope with BioVision Seed Labs.
Okay, so we are here with Holly Gelech, Business Development Manager with BioVision, and we are talking about the seed test specifically for pulses and the role that that information you get plays in establishing that crop and getting that optimum plant stand. So from maybe from a first step, when farmers are sending in their pulse samples, what information should they be asking for, and then what do they do with it?
Well, the first and most important thing for them to consider is really to back up and say, what do I need to do in order to get myself a fantastic stand, get that optimal plants per square foot. Now, for pulses, it's going to range. Peas, they'd be looking at 7 to 8 plants per square foot. Lentils, definitely higher at the 11 to 12 plants per square foot. So really the first thing is saying, okay, what do I want my field to look like when it's emerging? How many plants per square foot? Now, in order to target that, there's 2 variables that we highly recommend from a seed testing perspective to diagnose to get to that specific target. Now, first off, the first thing to be do is a germination test. Find out how many plants are actually going to grow and produce a viable plant. The germination of a pea that is 95% versus a 75% can significantly impact what the stand is going to look like, and at the very end, the yield. So that would be a 20% reduction in plants. So obviously the germination is the first thing. Find out how much grows. The second thing would be to do a kernel weight test. Now, peas can vary extremely in size. They can be as low as 180 grams for 1,000 kernel count, up to 300. So that's an extremely broad range. So our recommendation is to do that package, the germination and the kernel weight. And from there, then go to your provincial agriculture site and find the seed calculator. Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan, each one of them has a seeding rate calculator where you can, for instance, put in, I want 8 plants per square foot, add in your germination, add in your kernel weight, and it will give you your seeding rate.
Perfect. So now, and that's of course, it does take in your germ levels and those sorts of things. But then, of course, we need to account for risk of disease and those sorts of things. So once you've got your germ and your 1,000 kernel weight and you work that out, then next from there, we're going to be looking at vigor or the cool stress test and disease screen as well, correct?
Absolutely. So now if you're a producer that you like to go in early, you have a lot of acres to cover, so you're going to be putting your peas in very cool conditions, we highly recommend a cool stress test. And how that is different than the germination test is that we plant it in the same media, which is a roll towel. We give it adequate moisture so that it will sprout. But then what we do is we put it in our chill chamber, which is 7 degrees Celsius and in the dark for 7 days. And then after the 7-day period, we move it into our warm chamber for another 7 days. So what it will do is it will start growing. And from there, then we can evaluate how many are vigorous plants and how many are non-vigorous, and finally, how many did not even sprout. Right. So again, producers looking at going in early, highly recommend a cool stress test.
Yes, absolutely. And certainly, germ, as we've said before, is done under ideal conditions. So, if you were going into very warm soil, maybe late in the season, germ is a great indicator. But yes, for those going in early, really the cool stress test is going to be a more accurate estimate of germinating seeds. And then of course, several diseases that are an issue with pulses. Some are going to be an issue right from the seed level. What should farmers be looking for from a seed test?
It really depends on which crop they're growing. Now, this past season, we've seen elevated levels of ascochyta in regional areas, specifically in the eastern side of Alberta and some of the wet regions in Saskatchewan. So typical ascochyta levels would be up to the 5% range, but we've had some pockets that have been approaching the 20% level. So this is a seed-borne disease. It quite often doesn't impact germ as much as some of the fungus on cereals do, but it's something to be very aware of. That seed treatment would definitely be a recommendation on high ascochyta levels, and if you're reaching that 15 to 20%, to really look at other options for different seed lots. From a lentil perspective, we don't look for ascochyta. We look for a couple other different species. One of them, and the most impactful, is botrytis. And we've seen very little botrytis this past year, but we've had a couple samples in that 1% infection range. The other disease we're also looking for is the anthracnose. And that is quite common in lentils this past year in the 1 to 2% infection range.
Okay, so definitely seed treatments come into play, and potentially even an alternate seed source at that point. So we are getting into what I would call the pre-seeding season, and so obviously farmers should, if they haven't already planned for this, the sooner they get these tests done, the sooner they have the results, and the sooner you can make decisions on what you need to do. So if you haven't gone out there, get that seed test done and work from there. So thank you so much, Holly. We'll certainly talk again soon, and maybe we'll cover some more pre-seeding topics in another Under the Microscope.
Great. Thank you.